Here you go.
Banned. That's the nothing personal word of the day. It is Thursday, April 18th, 2024, and we are leading with Jontay Porter, the Toronto Raptors player who has been banned for life by Adam Silver and the NBA for the cardinal sin, the third rail of infractions, gambling. It's an interesting conversation to have on a show on the DraftKings network. But this is nothing personal, and we're about to have it. Raise your hand if you want to do the stroke test, or raise your hand if you are surprised that there are players who are involved with gambling. Just in the last, is it weeks now? We had the entire Shohei Ohtani situation where he wasn't gambling at all, but it was his interpreter who might as well have been a player involved in gambling, but not third rail gambling, because we've now changed our view. People can go back to the Black Sox. They can go back to Pete Rose. They can go back to point shaving in the NBA. Hot Rod Williams, I believe. I'm sorry to sully you, Hot Rod, but I think that you were involved in point shaving. I was thinking to myself just now that my entire point of starting the show to tell you that the world has changed, and now we've got players gambling, which never would have happened but for the existence of the relationship between gambling and the leagues. And then I realized it's total horse hockey. The relationship between gambling and the leagues has actually helped the integrity of the game, not hurt it. It has actually led to the quick and easy investigation. Think about what just happened with Jontay Porter, Adam Silver. This was March. We're now April. He floated the balloon by telling you it's a cardinal sin. I would not hesitate bringing down the hammer. And then 10 days later, maybe it's fewer, Jontay Porter got banned. And we got the details, which people seemed to say, God, that's jarring. Telling people that he's not going to play or that he's hurt. Betting on his own team to lose in games he didn't play. Having known associates put in parlays. Making bets of his own on accounts between $15, $12,000, tons of bets, thousands of bets. The system worked exactly as it should, and he got caught. It was not easy to tell players 20 years ago. The first time I did one of the gambling reads or was in the clubhouse, see, every spring training, the final day, you read the gambling rule to the players. The assistant GM would always do it. There was not easy access to online betting. Sportsbook betting was in Vegas. The players knew not to do that. The only thing around was illegal betting with bookmakers. And we would explain to the players, here's the rule. It's very simple. Don't violate it. Do not bet on baseball. Seems pretty clear. Say it in every language you can. And the players didn't think much about it. I didn't think much about it till I had a player who got in trouble. You may not remember. Good player, good man. Made some mistakes, Jared Cozart. As the years passed, it became easier and easier. Gambling became legalized in more and more states. We went from not being able to be associated with it as a sport to embracing it as a sport. Every sport embraced Vegas when everyone had shied away. The sea change has been business related. Dollars. But what the leagues have to do now is make sure that you know as fans, but more importantly as gamblers, that you know that we're all about dollar fine, that they're all about integrity. The on-field or on-court results, they have to be pure. It's just a coincidence when Tyler Hero hits a 3 and the game goes from under to over, a meaningless 3 at the end of the game. I don't know how many times we have to go game by game and go through how close the lines can be. That one shot either way for a game line, for a money line. Money line is just a win or a loss, but a spread line. Player props. How many of you put in parlays and you hit every one except the last leg and you miss by an assist? You wonder how that keeps happening to you. The proliferation of these types of bets, whether it's prop bets, any type of funky bets, and you're wondering whether it is normal or surprising that a player gets involved. You want to say to yourself, no, I'm of the belief it's pure. And I'm here to tell you it hasn't been pure in decades, maybe centuries. It's just now way more in the open and way easier to discover. My conversation with players, totally different today than it would have been 20 years ago, 25 years ago, because everything is so much more accessible. In life, access actually turns out to be one of the most important parts of freedom and one of the most dangerous parts of freedom. Because what access grants you is ease of use. It's not hard for Jontay Porter to do what he did. Stupid? Yes. Difficult? Degree of difficulty. 0.0. Sign up for an account, and all of a sudden you're gambling. Degree of stupidity, 100. I would say to the players, I don't know how you expect that you won't get caught. Whether you are telling somebody to wager, whether you are wagering yourself, the ability, because of gambling being regulated, because of these sites and their technology, the ability to get to the bottom of something, it's unparalleled. So instead of sounding the alarm, which is what so many people are doing, instead of saying, get used to it, we've only just begun, how about embracing the fact that catching bad apples is a way to make the bunch healthier? We'll see whether or not that happens. Adam Silver went pretty far with his statement when he banned Jontay Porter for life. He started with what every statement has to start with by every commissioner. It's in the playbook, so we've seen it everywhere. 1, there's nothing more important than protecting the integrity of NBA competition for our fans, our teams, and everyone associated with our sport. What really that first sentence is saying is, listen, we want to make sure that when you're gambling, you've got a shot to win in your mind. Okay, good first sentence. While legal sports betting creates transparency that helps identify suspicious or abnormal activity, as we talked about, this matter, here's where it gets a little dicey, Adam. This matter raises important issues about the sufficiency of the regulatory framework currently in place. Let me translate. Do you remember when the NCAA came out recently? Who was it, Coca? And said we shouldn't be having player props for college students. It's too tempting. What Adam Silver is saying is that he has some concern that there could be a player with props who's able to then feign injury and all of a sudden unders hit. Now, if you're going to bet 80,000 to win $1 million, it's going to get frozen and caught. If you're going to bet $15 to win $150, my guess is it may not get flagged. When Charlie Baker came out and said, let's make it easy on the students, let's eliminate any possible access. Seems like Adam Silver is picking up on that. The likelihood of the government stepping in and saying that there will be no more prop bets is teensy-tiny. We don't need more government regulation. We've got the amount of regulation in place that has put up the walls in order to enable the technology to find as quickly as possible the bad apples. That's all you can ask from your government in that regard, in that subject matter. The way Adam ended his statement is that working closely with all relevant stakeholders, including the gambling companies, we will continue to work diligently to safeguard our league and game. As though Jontay Porter is the existential threat to the NBA. Not the case. Adam Silver has a business reason for this position, in addition to the investment by the gambling companies. He's going out to get a broadcast deal. It is critical for the networks, whether it be ESPN. Don't get me started on the conflict of interest. There is none. People are talking about it. Well, everything's a gambling company. One of the funniest tweets, Coke, I saw, or maybe it was something else. I think it was the Adam Silver announcement of banning Jontay Porter, brought to you by, and I think it was DraftKings or FanDuel, whoever it was. What people were trying to say is, wouldn't it be funny when there's a news item about salmonella and that news item is brought to you by the beef industry or brought to you by Wendy's? I get where you're going, except I wasn't at all moved by that. You're able to separate when there are sponsorships. They're a company like everybody else, DraftKings, versus the help they give to keep customers playing. That's the help they're giving. Now, tangentially, it helps the NBA, it helps MLB, it helps the NFL. But DraftKings smartly is working with technology to make sure that you all feel level. That's good business. The last thing on Jontay Porter, before we move on to a great question that one of you had, and so you want to talk to Samson, is that he's got to deal with his current reality. His reality is that his ability to make a living has now been taken away. And this is only a comment where I am supposing, hypothesizing, this is not journalism. I am suggesting that it is unlikely in the real world for people, Jontay Porter, to get a job where the pay would be what the pay would be as an NBA player. Jontay Porter wakes up this morning with the realization that in trying to make more money as a G League player, as a prospective NBA player, as the brother of a hugely successful NBA player, but that doesn't mean that he's got that money or uses that money or has access to that money. He's got to live with the fact that his decision and its consequence has cost him the ability to continue to do that which A, he loved, and B, that he was able to monetize so well. So when you're making the decision, do you think about those things? Or is it like any other felon, not that he's a felon, but any felon who says, I won't get caught? If you are an athlete and you are gambling, you are going to get caught. And that's the best part of this news. All right, Coca, here we go.
You know what I want? I want to talk to Samson.
Coca for the win. So you want to talk to Samson. Get in my Twitter at David P. Samson or on davidsamsonpodcast.com. Ask me a question. David, do you think it's possible that Robert Kraft would torpedo Belichick's chance at coaching again? Woo-hoo. You knew I'd talk about that. Smart to ask a question on a subject that you know I'm going to cover for sure. So here's the story. An ESPN report comes out. The huge Wickersham, Fowler, Don Van Natta Jr. And it's a bombshell again. So apparently, Bill Belichick was no longer with the Patriots, was interviewing for head coaching positions, couldn't get a lot of them, got down the road with the Atlanta Falcons, is meeting with Arthur Blank on his yacht. Things are proceeding toward contract, and then all of a sudden, Morris gets hired to coach the Falcons. And Belichick was wondering what happened. I thought we were going to have a deal. Now a report comes out that Arthur Blank gets a phone call. Arthur, it's Robert. Robert, how are you? I'm good, Arthur. Thanks. Hey, listen, I read that you're interviewing Belichick. Is that true? Well, yeah. Why do you ask? Well, because I'd like to tell you something. He's not a good guy. You shouldn't hire him. I've got very serious trust issues with him. He's extremely, extremely arrogant. And I'm just telling you that I think you'd be making a huge mistake. Robert, why? Really? Did you look at your hand recently? Have you looked at your trophy case? Yeah, but don't think about that stuff. Well, I have to think about that because I'm not sure I've ever won a Super Bowl there, Robert. Yeah, I know, but you're not going to win one with Bill. Well, I'm not that convinced. Hangs up the phone, thinks about it, and says, I guess I shouldn't hire him, and doesn't. That is a major, major bit of information. Except Robert Kraft, of course, has vehemently denied that they did that. As a matter of fact, a spokesman came out and said, Robert steadfastly denies. I always like that. Steadfastly. It's not a normal denial. It's a steadfast denial. It's not your run-of-the-mill denial. Robert steadfastly denies that he ever went to a... Wait a minute. Did he win? Why do we have the strip mall quote in here? All right, can you pull up the quote about this one? All right, thank you. 4869. Robert steadfastly denies saying anything negative to Arthur Blank about Bill Belichick after Robert and Bill mutually agreed to part ways, the spokesman said. In fact, Robert advocated for Bill to get the job. Is it unheard of for another owner to call an owner or president? No, I got the call. What's unheard of is to change your decision based on that call. I got the call from Jerry Reinsdorf saying, you sure you want to hire Ozzie? I said, yeah, why? Well, I'm not sure that he really wants to keep working. He'll certainly take your paycheck. I said, Jerry, come on. You're just upset that you can't deal with him after he won the World Series for you and that he's bigger in Chicago than you are, more popular than you are. That's the truth, isn't it, Jer? Well, David, caveat emptor. Side note, he may have been right. Love you, Ozzie, but he may have been right. Are there other examples where there is owner-to-owner conversation? Every owner's meeting I've been to, every single one, there's little side talk because it's a small group of teams. It's a small number, as we've discussed, a small number in the coaching carousel, in the GM carousel, in the player carousel. You think that owners don't sit around and talk about players? Hey, how's it working out with blank? Ooh, man, we love him. Really? We didn't like him that well. Or the other way around. These conversations are commonplace. Here's the difference. The only time that I would ever give misleading information to another club is when it benefited me. When someone asked me, what are you paying Barry Bonds? The Giants. I lied to them. I didn't want them to know what Barry Bonds was getting paid because we were paying him on the side. And he had left the Giants on not great terms in baseball, and all of a sudden he's the hitting coach of the Marlins. When there is a free agent, hey, what do you think of player X? We're not even looking at him, when in fact we're negotiating. Hey, would you talk about player Y? Yeah, we talk about anybody, but it's really going to take a heavy lift. Hey, excuse me, Mike, what do we want back for player Y? These are normal conversations that are taking place. What is in it for Kraft to have Belichick not hired by Atlanta? Let's think about it for a second. Patriots, Falcons. I guess they could play in the Super Bowl. Would it benefit Robert for Belichick never get a job again? Would it hurt him if he got a job again and was successful? Would it help him if he got a job again and was not successful? And my argument to Robert, were he to have advisors, which clearly he does not. I mean, he's not the only narcissistic octogenarian. They're everywhere. My advice would have been, there will never be another relationship like the Patriots and you and Bill and Brady. It's not going to happen. The level of success, the dynasty, the fact that the three of you were together for so long, it just doesn't work that way. There is nothing that can change the association of you, Tom, and Bill. You guys are forever three legs of a stool. It does not matter what he does. The only thing you can do is screw it up. The only thing you can do is make a documentary where you look petty and it looks like a hit job. The only thing you can do to screw it up would be to somehow be rumored to be sullying him publicly or privately to either fans or executives or owners. All you have to do is be humble, gracious, and thankful for the success that you all had together, and you will all go down in history together as the example. And yet Kraft couldn't even stick to that. He totally screwed it up. That's it. What does it mean for Bill Belichick? First of all, he reads this report, immediately calls Robert and says, Bob, seriously? Nah, Bill didn't do that. As a matter of fact, I'm so sure that there are teams that are going to hire him that I'm going to make it an official wait to see. Coca, let's do that. Wait to see. When I say something's going to happen, we'll revisit it. Bill Belichick will coach in the NFL again. He's in the news yesterday because he's helping out McAfee on the draft coverage, being an analyst for this and that. Bill Belichick will coach in the NFL because he's a coach. It's not a Cowher situation or another. I'm trying to think of another person who stayed out of coaching to be an analyst. I don't know why Cowher is the first person in my head. Strange. But it's not that situation. Wait to see. Belichick will coach in the NFL again. When we come back, it's Thursday. I get to review a movie for my top 100, and we get to choose what we're going to see next week to review. We're spending 100 straight Thursdays reviewing one movie in my top 100, which you can find at davidsamsonpodcast.com. And then we're going to get into some teams in Major League Baseball. And the name of the topic is What Happened to Blank? You fill in the blank. I feel like Gene Rayburn. What happened to blank? We'll be right back. Welcome back. That was a Gene Rayburn reference. Nobody's getting that. I think maybe 2.8% of you. Gene Rayburn was a game show host, and he had a very, Coca, if you could, this would be DraftKings Network. We are so close to the level of investment where we would have the ability to, when I say Gene Rayburn, and I'm talking about the longest, skinniest microphone you ever did see, boom, it would just appear on the screen. As it is, Coca has a hard enough time following my train of thought, knows me better than anyone in the world in terms of this show. There's no way he thought Gene Rayburn was coming up. Everything Everywhere All at Once. This may be a record. This is our 1,035th show. I think this may be the third review of EEAAO. There are people who are not still appreciative of this movie and the performance of Michelle Yeoh and of Jamie Lee Curtis and others, the Academy Award winner, Best Supporting Actor, Supporting Actress, Picture, Director, everything. I told you last time, I'll tell you again, watch it twice. First time, confusing. Brilliant, but confusing. Second time, it just clicks. And if it doesn't, watch it a third time. Because like Inception or Interstellar, it's the click. Everything is in the click. Because when it clicks, its brilliance shines. It's number 34 on my top 100 list. It's called Everything Everywhere All at Once. Just watch it. All right, let's bring up that spreadsheet and let's see what movie we're going to be reviewing next week that I get to watch again in my top 100. Hit the button and we will be reviewing. I swear to God, Coke, I can't see what it says. We're live, baby. Oh, Milk. I'm excited to watch that again. Sean Penn gives a performance. It's about Harvey Milk, the mayor in San Francisco. It's got Emile Hirsch in it. It is, I can't wait for you all to watch Milk, but we'll review it next week. All right. All right's the same as okay, Coca. Cut that out. 489. 6. What happened to the Chicago White Sox? We talked about the business of the White Sox yesterday, and we talked about Jerry this morning, actually. That's 3 Jerry White Sox references in the course of 2 days. And people in Chicago thought I wasn't doing enough Chicago stuff. Here you go. The White Sox have had 1 winning season since 2013. They've lost 100 games twice. They lost 99. They're 3-15 this year. And people are despondent. People are wondering whether or not it was a Kenny Williams issue. Was it really Rick Hahn? How's the new guy, Chris? Who's the consistent person that's leading this team? Is Jerry Reinsdorf to blame? I've told you that Jerry Reinsdorf has a lifetime pass because he got 1 World Series and 6 Bulls NBA World Championships. That's it. 6 rings for a city since the early 90s. Not terrible. 20 years since the White Sox won the World Series. What about before 05? All of that said, the complaining that I'm hearing about the White Sox is that they can't hit. Their manager is not a big league manager. And you are right. However, when long-term deals were signed for Robert, Jimenez, and Moncada, do you all remember how you reacted? Way to go. They're investing in our youth. They are locking these guys up. Now that Robert has only played over 100 games once and is hurt, Jimenez has only played over 100 games twice since that deal. These guys are signed through 26 and 27. Are you now thinking to yourself, it wasn't worth it? It's handcuffing us. It's making us terrible. We have a bunch of minor leaguers out there trying to score runs. Of course, they're not scoring runs. And by the way, Tim Anderson, gone. He wasn't helping you. Dylan Cease, why did we trade him? Because you weren't going to win with him. You might as well get players for him. Lucas, see you later. Remember that Lucas Giolito trade when he went to the Angels, when Artie Moreno, this is last year, I think, Coca. Artie Moreno said, hey, let's go for it at the deadline. And it was totally irrational. They went for it to try to show Ohtani they could win, as though that would stop him from leaving. I thought it may have. What do you do if you're the White Sox? I've got an idea. Believe in your hire. Believe in Chris. Believe that this set of young players that you currently have will open another window, because the window that you tried with Robert, Moncada, Jimenez, that window is likely closed. And you know what? I dig it. Not every open window leads to a championship. Not every open window even leads to above 500. I had an open window with Stanton, Yelich, Ozuna, 3 of the top performing players all these years later. 8 years later, they're still 3 of the top performing players in baseball. Couldn't win 81 games. Don't tell me you had no pitching. When you have pitching, you have no hitting. It doesn't matter. We couldn't win 81 games. It doesn't mean that our process was wrong. It doesn't mean the players were bad. It means we just didn't win during that window. And then, like every other team in baseball, save the Dodgers and maybe the Yankees, the window closes and you gear up to open another one. Totally normal. The thing that Coca and I disagree about is that he doesn't understand why I can't be empathetic to fan bases who get so angry at their owners when their team doesn't win games. Well, Jerry Reinsdorf may want to only finish in second place. I assure you, Jerry Reinsdorf has zero interest in 100 lost seasons, zero interest in being 3-15, zero interest in being the laughing stock, especially when he's trying to do these ballpark deals, especially when he's trying to get carriage for his nascent sports network. Of course, he wants the White Sox to be good. He doesn't say, hey, make sure you tank. He just doesn't want to lose money operationally. Do you blame him? His payroll is lower than other teams' payroll. Yeah, so is their revenue. All the people, and this is what it gets me, folks. You show pictures of empty stadiums and then say, look, what a disgrace. You think I don't look out at an empty stadium and think the same thing? Like, God, I'm a failure. God, you're a failure. This community is a failure. My players are a failure. The whole thing's a malrev. I'm thinking the same thing. And then I go back to the office after a game, sit down with the CFO. Hey, how do we do tonight? It's a performance. It's a ticketed event. It's a nothing personal live tour. Hey, there's a joke in there. The audiences are both the same. That'd be good for me, bad for them. When you do a ticketed event, you do your best. You don't tank it. You market it, you promote it, you publicize it, and you hope that the result is something that works for the customer. It's why you don't sell wins and losses. You sell experience. It can't be a good experience. There's only 5,000 people here. True. More people came, better experience. Who doesn't like going to a crowded club? But sometimes you like going to a quiet dinner, don't you? Well, plenty of quiet dinners available in Chicago right now. They're going to stay the course, folks. You can yell and scream all you want. It's not going to change a thing. You know who else isn't going to change? Don't go changing to try to please me. I used to sing that to myself a lot as president of the team. I like you just the way you are. What happened to the Rockies? Oh, bad. Do you know that since 2011, they haven't won 75 games, saved twice when they actually made the playoffs in 17 and 18? The Rockies are a great example of a franchise that in the beginning, selling out, great revenue, great teams, making the playoffs on a pretty consistent basis, and they have fallen into a losing window. They were so upset about the window. Dick Monfort is so concerned about losing that he okayed the signing of Chris Bryant. Chris Bryant was given a 7-year, $182 million contract through 2028. Chris Bryant, like Javi Baez before him, very important part of the 2016 World Series, a former MVP. I get it, but the Chris Bryant you signed stinks, and he stunk before he signed the contract. But you spent the money. Way to go. You spent the money on young players. You signed young players to extensions. We thought that's what would make the fans happy. Lock up Tovar. Lock up Senzatella, who's, by the way, Tommy John out. Give him $63 million, Tovar. Satisfy the fan base. Sign free agents and young players. We've got the system. It's all you've ever asked for. Be a participant in the game in the offseason. Ryan McMahon, long-term deal, doing well. Kyle Freeland. Do you think that Dick Monfort goes every day to Coors Field and says, let's try to lose? The best thing is that the attendance in Colorado is so different than Chicago, so different than Miami, where people still are coming to games. I don't know this to be true, Matthew. I believe the Rockies are somewhere in the top half of attendance every single year and have been. The fans in Denver are amazing because the experience is amazing to go to Coors Field on an afternoon or evening and enjoy a baseball game. The fans are getting restless in Denver, but let me give you a word of advice. Nothing's going to change. I'm sorry. Just embrace it. Embrace the fact that the decisions that are made haven't been good. Embrace the fact that, hey, maybe they'll get better. But on the other hand, generally, people are who they are. And I'm guilty of the same thing. It's not a coincidence. What happened to the Astros bullpen? I don't know if you've been watching. During the offseason, the Houston Astros signed Josh Hader to that huge contract. And again, with my skinny mic, imagine if we were able to go to video of me talking about the difficulty of bringing in a closer when you've got the most successful postseason closer of all time, when you have had a run that you're potentially at the end of, but really still going. You add to your bullpen and you announce immediately with your first-year manager that you're going to pitch your closer in the 8th inning because the new guy, Josh Hader, is going to get the 9th inning. Then picture Ryan Pressly not being happy, and then picture Ryan Pressly stinking. Not a great picture, but salvageable because you've got Josh Hader in the 9th inning. Until you realize that he's stinking too. The Astros have the 3rd worst bullpen ERA in all of baseball. Pressly's at a 9.5. Hader's almost at an 8.25, 8.5. Oh, it's early. Yes, it's true. We're still in April. The players, they've played 20 games. It's a little more than 10%. Around 12.5, 14%, 15%. What does it mean when this happens? You think that Jim Crane and Dana Brown are going into the clubhouse and saying, hey, Joey, what's going on with the bullpen? And Joey says, I'm using them exactly as you told me to use them. Pressly in the 8th, Hader in the 9th. Didn't you tell me Pressly was good? Oh, yeah, we spoke to him. He was more than happy to bring in Josh Hader. Nope. When you make a player change positions who's used to playing the position, again, happened to me. Hanley, I'd be happy to play 3rd. You're going to bring in Reyes to play short? What a great thing. I'll move. And then all of a sudden, Hanley says, I'm a shortstop. What are you doing? I can't stand that guy. We've got video of you two playing video games. Yeah, that was for the camera. You told me on the phone directly. I said, Hanley, will you play 3rd base? And he said, Poppy, of course. Anything to make this team good as we're heading into this great new stadium. He was lying. Pressly, when asked about Hader, had to have had the same reaction. It seems almost impossible to believe that he'd be okay with being demoted. Players have egos, as they should. So do executives. What happened to the Astros is that they're getting production from Altuve. And I believe that Dopey, Sneezy, and Grumpy are in their starting rotation. They're going to get Verlander back. If you're expecting Verlander to... When does he pitch? It's got to be soon, Coca. If you're expecting Verlander to be the Verlander that you're used to, it's very unlikely. He is at an advanced age. It would be Clemens-like sans needles for Verlander to have the type of season that will be needed to help Houston. And I'm still a Houston believer, unabashedly. Verlander will be starting tomorrow Friday, April 19th, says he's stretched out and ready to go. Not going to address the issue of the Astros bullpen. Here's the good news, and it is good news. Not every team is like my team, where a bad bullpen to start ruins the entire season. The Houston Astros are in a position where I would guarantee, as a matter of fact, Coca, a second wait to see for today. Making up for lost time. Right now, the Reds' bullpen ERA is the third worst in baseball. I will tell you that at the end of the season, the Reds will be in the top half for bullpen ERA. Book that wait to see, Coca. Write it down. The Astros' relief pitching bullpen ERA will be in the top half of Major League Baseball. Wait to see. Nothing personal pick of the day. Presented by DraftKings Fantasy Sports. Check out what DraftKings has to offer this season with code Samson. Because life's more fun when you're in on the action. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Today's pick of the day is the Detroit Tigers over Jack Leiter and the Texas Rangers. Jack Leiter, the son of Al Leiter, former great pitcher for the Mets and terrible pitcher second time around for the Marlins, has a son who I've known since he was a little boy. I can't believe Jack is in the big leagues. Congratulations, Jack. It's your debut. While it's not ideal to pick against you in your debut because I know you, my pick of the day truly is Maeda and the Tigers over Leiter. It doesn't mean you won't have a good major league career, Jack. It just means that tonight your team isn't going to win. That's the Nothing Personal Pick of the Day, presented by DraftKings Fantasy Sports. How did yesterday go with my pick of the day? I had the Diamondbacks over the Cubs. Font did have a good game, actually. What's with the first five? I keep threatening to do that. Why aren't we doing that? Betting the first five. Therefore, not subjecting yourself to the nightmare that is the end of a game. Sixers, 5.5 over the Heat. Can we talk about that game? So ugly. Does anyone think that was just pretty? I don't think it's pretty to have passes that aren't crisp, give up easy steals for fast breaks by a guy who can't even walk, Jimmy Butler. It looks like they can't inbounds the ball. The end of the game was a total cluster. Sixers could barely inbound the ball. Nick Nurse is just sitting there. Drop a play, dude. He'd have a big lead in the second half and blow it. And the big story is another injury in a game that will never be a part of anybody's career. If you know, you know. Jimmy Butler tweaked his knee. May have injured his MCL, reports are saying. We don't know. He'll get an MRI today. I wouldn't have waited if I were the Heat. He'll get an MRI today, as the Heat now have a second chance to make the playoffs, when they will play the Bulls, I believe, Friday night, tomorrow night, for an opportunity to become the 8th seed. That's the thing about the 7 versus 8 game. It's not an elimination game. If you win, you're in. If you lose, you host another game. Now, tomorrow night is an elimination game. Heat, Bulls. I was watching the game thinking to myself, how is it that a team with Joel Embiid, Harris, Maxey, how can they look so bad? Is Josh Harris even watching? Is he even thinking? Coke, I didn't even bring this up to you. Someone wrote somewhere, and I don't remember who it was. It could have been Jonathan Jones, a colleague at CBS. Oh, this is ruined. It's totally ruined. I believe what was said is that Josh Harris has a basketball game for a team he owns and the NFL draft where the Commanders, as you know, have that pick in the top 2. Do you go to the draft or do you go to the game? That's a very funny question. To me, it's an absolute no-brainer. You go to the game. The owner does not have to be at a draft. All the owner needs is cell service. Because, as a matter of fact, I take it back. The owner doesn't even need cell service. When you've got the number 2 pick, it's quite simple. We are taking blank. If blank's not available because he's taken first by the Bears, and for whatever reason, it's not Caleb Williams, then we'll take blank. Coca, you're yelling. You don't have to yell. It's his first draft. I don't care. Oh, you're saying for sure he's going to be there. Wait to see, Coca. You don't choose to be at a draft instead of at a playoff game for a team you own. Now, it may not. Now, is it a Sixer-Knicks game? Is it a home Sixers-Knicks game? I believe it may be. There is zero chance he will not be at game 3 against the Knicks. Zero. Just keep your phone. Oh, Caleb Williams went to the Bears. All right, we know who we're taking. 2 seconds. That's it. Coca, I mean, you are, first of all, this is funny, folks. He wrote it in capital letters in our shared document, and he's yelling it at me. I think that's a little NFL bias that we all have. When you own a team in the playoffs, you go to the playoff game. I'm not going to be wrong here. Now, I hope he doesn't wuss out and choose to do neither because he doesn't want to offend Commanders fans or Sixers fans, so he calls in sick. Oh, I'm in my man cave. I'm surrounded by monitors. I am locked in like Jesse Eisenberg. Don't bother me, Andrew. I wonder if that's what he'll do. I don't think so. Don't worry. He's paying plenty enough attention to the Commanders. You should be worried if you're a Sixers fan. The Commanders just announced that they hired a politician. They hired the previous chief of staff for Senator Hickenlooper. I don't know if you saw this. The Commanders need a new stadium. Snyder couldn't do it. What Harris thought is, hey, we'll buy the Commanders for $6 billion and we'll get a stadium immediately. We'll get a naming rights deal immediately. FedEx will disappear. We won't have to name our field Commanders Field because we're taking over for the absolute worst owner in the world. What could go wrong? Well, now they're forced to hire someone because they got to figure out how to get a ballpark done, how to get a stadium done. And wouldn't you know it, they sent out Jason Wright, their team president, to give us the quote to get everything clear in our heads about what they're doing by hiring someone to help get a new stadium built in the DC area. Jason Wright said, listen, the Commanders' relationships with federal and local leaders are vital to our organization. In parentheses, not mentioned, securing public money. Next, still in the quote, we're confident this guy who they hired will partner powerfully with them to advance, that's the leaders, will partner with the leaders powerfully to advance community and policy efforts. That's not what he's hired for. That benefit our fans and the area at large. Josh Harris, let me help you. Please let me help you. It's okay to admit that you need a new stadium because you want more revenue, that you want to make money, that you want to start paying the debt incurred by buying the team. It's totally normal to say it. But when you send your team president out to say that you're hiring a guy to get a new stadium only to benefit the fans in the area at large, you look like an idiot. Don't treat your fans or audience as though they're dumb. Treat them with respect. I'd have way more respect if the quote had been, we hired someone because we need a deal. It's going to be better for you. It's going to be better for me. And when things are better for everybody, things are better. It's like when you're an owner, you're scared. You're scared to admit that it's a business. You're scared to admit that you're trying to be profitable. Why? I get completely worked up with people who are scared to acknowledge what everyone sees is true. All you actually had to do is stand up and say, I'm going to the Sixers game. I'm hiring someone to get a new stadium for the Commanders because it's just business. This is nothing personal.